of the difficulties associated with texting is the communication of emotions. Starting with the combination of keys when limited to the standard keyboard, the Japanese introduced the first emoji in 1999. Today, our standard smartphones have tons of emojis to incorporate our feelings into our messages, and if you aren't satisfied with your choices there, you can purchase an almost unlimited amount for very little money. That's how significant emotions are. We are willing to spend time and money to communicate how we feel to others. And why? Because emotions serve an important purpose. As the website 6 Seconds noted in 2018, emotions serve to focus our attention and motivate us to action in a way that helps us survive and thrive. They provide information about our interior world and about our relationships. But what is an emotion? That's what this video will cover: the definition of emotions and the categories emotions fall into, as well as emotional contagion theory, which suggests how emotions are passed to others. Before we get into what emotions are, let's first start with what they are not. Technically, emotions aren't really feelings, as the definition of feelings is the physical sensations that occur. Think of a doctor tapping your skin and asking if you can feel the touch. But it's not uncommon to use the two words interchangeably, as in, I have feelings for you. In fact, even Merriam-Webster's dictionary uses feeling in their definition of emotion, and you can usually find it listed as a synonym. And as emotions and feelings are so intertwined, it's often very difficult to determine where one ends and the other begins, and we will use the words interchangeably in this video. However, it is completely incorrect to equate emotions with beliefs or opinions. They are not synonymous. A belief is something that is a generally accepted truth in your value system, not requiring proof, while opinions are your views or judgments about something. If you say, I feel you are irresponsible, even though you are using the word feel, you are stating your opinion and not an emotion. Just putting the words I feel before another word or series of words does not mean it's an emotion. And just as it is difficult to separate belief and emotion, it's also difficult to come up with a universal definition. American scholar Richard Weaver defined emotions as felt tendencies toward stimuli, meaning that your body reacts to a stimulus, sometimes called the activating event, in a way you can feel. Other scholars use different definitions, but the common thread is that emotions are a reaction to an activating event. When you are experiencing emotions, your body reacts. Physiological changes occur in your body. Some of these reactions you can feel, while others you can't. For example, you may not feel a rise in your blood pressure or your pupils dilating, while you are likely to feel your jaw tightening and your heart rate increasing. These physiological changes, the ones you can feel, are called proprioceptive stimuli and can themselves be part of the activating event. In contrast, those stimuli you can't feel are called, what else? Non-proprioceptive responses. Some of these physiological changes may be observable on the outside. They are your nonverbal reactions, such as sweating, blushing, posture, strained or excited voice, and facial expressions. When you notice these physiological reactions, your brain interprets them and applies a label to them, a process called cognitive interpretations. Sweaty palms? You could be anxious or excited, but your brain labels it, which again can be part of the activating event. Let's turn next to the categories of emotions. Some people classify emotions as good or bad, but that's a rather simplistic approach. Instead, emotions are often classified as facilitative or debilitative. Facilitative emotions are those that contribute to your ability to function effectively. In fact, facile in Latin means easy. Facilitative emotions make it easier for you to go through life. Debilitative emotions, on the other hand, are those that hinder your ability to function effectively. In Latin, debil means weak, so you can think of debilitative emotions as weakening your ability to cope with life. How does this differ from the more simplistic good and bad emotions? Consider love as an example. Many people consider love to be a positive emotion. However, love can become so intense that you aren't able to concentrate or you may make poor decisions. And frustration, which many consider to be a negative emotion, in some cases, frustration can be the catalyst to spur you to make necessary changes in your life. Author Toni Morrison, in an interview with CBS, offered a view of how, for her, anger is debilitating. She called it a paralyzing emotion, adding, "You can't get anything done. People sort of think it's an interesting, passionate, and igniting feeling. I don't think it's any of that. It's helpless, it's absence of control. And I need all of my skills, all of the control, all of my powers. And anger doesn't provide any of that. I have no use for it whatsoever." So, what differentiates between facilitative and debilitative emotions? Two factors: intensity and duration. Debilitative emotions tend to be stronger, more intense, and last longer. Using our examples of love and frustration again, love, when intense, can turn into an obsession, and frustration, when strong and held on to for a long time, can interfere with your ability to function. Perhaps the best example of duration is the reference of the emotion of revenge being a dish best served cold, which means that if someone wrongs you, don't exact your revenge right away, while the revenge or the dish is hot. Wait a while, and they not only won't be expecting it, but it will be much more satisfying to you. That leads us into a different view of the categories of emotions: primary and secondary emotions. The primary emotion is the first emotion you feel, perhaps frustration. That frustration, the primary emotion, can lead to a secondary emotion, anger. Another example: the primary emotion of fear could turn into nervousness or horror. Sometimes the shift between the primary and the secondary emotions is so quick that it's hard to differentiate them. Up to this point, we've addressed emotions as a very simple concept. But as you likely know, emotions are often anything but simple. They may be hard to detect, and even harder when they are mixed. Mixed emotions are often referred to as when you are experiencing multiple, often conflicting emotions at the same time. An example often cited is how you can feel joy and sadness simultaneously, which many parents feel when their children go away to college or get married. Another example is the New Orleans Saints football player Benjamin Watson's Facebook post in response to the Ferguson, Missouri grand jury's decision in 2014 not to indict a police officer in the shooting death of Michael Brown. In his 650-word post, Watson shared 12 different emotional reactions to the decision, many of them conflicting, such as feeling both angry and encouraged at the same time. One thing to keep in mind is that emotions are contagious. Yep, just like the flu, you can catch emotions from others. Think about the time you caught a fit of the giggles from your best friend, or maybe even a bout of the blues. The theory behind this is called the emotional contagion theory. Consciously or unconsciously, we synchronize our emotions with others, and that directly triggers similar emotions and behaviors in others. How do we do this? One theory is that when we interact face to face, in addition to the words, we notice others' physical behaviors, vocal quality, facial expressions, posture, and other behavioral patterns, and we unconsciously mimic their behavior, catching the emotion. And according to Elaine Hatfield, professor of psychology at the University of Hawaii in Honolulu and co author of the 1994 book Emotional Contagion, mood infection happens in milliseconds. The theory suggests that when you mimic any of the other person's behaviors, such as smiling or frowning, the muscular movements in your face or body adjust blood flow to the brain, which in turn affects your mood. Then the sensations you are feeling associated with those specific behaviors, like facial expressions or body positioning, trigger memories along with the feeling, and you feel those emotions. You catch them, just like the flu. And women? Research shows that women are more likely than men to mimic the emotional facial expressions of others, perhaps contributing to the finding reported in Psychology Today that women are twice as likely to experience depression as men. But unlike the flu, you don't even have to be in the same physical environment to catch someone's emotions. In 2014, Facebook conducted an experiment where they manipulated the emotional content on users' news feeds. The results? According to an article published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America journal, emotions expressed by others on Facebook influence our own emotions, constituting experimental evidence for massive scale contagion via social networks. What can you do with this knowledge? First is to become aware of how you feel around different people, labeling your emotions. Then ask yourself if you're feeling that emotion because you actually feel that way or perhaps because you've caught the mood from the other person. This knowledge alone may act as a vaccine so that you short circuit your thought process to reduce the contagion, assuming you want to. Hey, I'd prefer to catch a good mood over a bad mood any day. Also, this information allows you to become more selective about the people you spend time with or follow on social media. What you've hopefully learned is that emotions, your reaction to an event or stimuli, are natural. Don't assume, however, that you have no control over your emotions or how you respond to them. That, however, is a subject for another video. Let's end with a quote from Anne Frank in The Diary of a Young Girl. But feelings can't be ignored, no matter how unjust or ungrateful they seem. Don't ignore your feelings. Understand and manage them.